Well, good morning and good afternoon, everybody who's joined us today, and thank you very much for making the time. My name is Michael Fay. I'm convener of the ASEAN Australia Education Dialogue, and I'd like to welcome you to today's event. Both on behalf of the ASEAN Australia Education Dialogue and Study Melbourne. It's normal for us to start our events with an acknowledgement to country. And I should say something about that to our guests. And we have a large number of them representing every country that's part of ASEAN. The reason why we do acknowledgement to country is because we want to recognise the Aboriginal ownership of Australia. And I acknowledge I'm meeting you today from the land of the Yuin Aboriginal people on the south coast of the state of New South Wales, Australia, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I also want to acknowledge that from at least 1700 until 1907, there was an active maritime trading and cultural relationship between North and Northeast Australian Aboriginal communities and Southeastern Indonesia, centred around Makassar. Many of you know Makassar in South Sulawesi. There are over 100 Indonesian words used in this part of Australia, that is the North and the Northeast. And I'll give you some examples for our Indonesian colleagues who have visited today or who are with us today. For example, the word for European in Northern Australia is balanda. The word for money is rupiah. The word for banana is pisang. The word for bread is roti. The word for canoe is lipa-lipa. And I thought it was very appropriate for a schools-based webinar focusing on education, focusing on what do we want to pass over to the next generation, and understanding that there is a long and a deep historical connection between Northern Australia and Southeast Asia. So Australia should feel at home in strengthening and deepening that relationship between our two regions. So just a couple of words about the ASEAN Australia Education Dialogue. Next year, we will have been doing this for 5 years. And I want to acknowledge that the Australian Government Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade did help us with the initial development of the dialogue and have been supportive, as has been our Department of Education. The idea of the dialogue, it's not a government event, it's track 2 diplomacy, and we recognise the work that government has done to provide the framework and the architecture that we can use to bring Australia and Southeast Asia closer together in education. And we've had 2 face-to-face dialogues. They, of course, have been impacted by COVID-19, as everybody's world has who's joined us today. So we've been on a virtual platform for the last 2 years. This will be our 10th webinar, and we have a large number of people who have joined today. Right now, there's over 100 people from all over the region. So thank you so much for joining us. We would also like to let you know that we've got other events planned next year. This year, Brunei has been the chair of ASEAN. Coming year will be Cambodia, and we'll be looking to focus some of our work on Cambodia in 2022. I'd also like to recognise the partnerships that we've developed, particularly with SEMEO, the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organisation, the ASEAN University Network, based in Thailand, and the HEAD Foundation, based in Singapore. Without those strong regional partnerships, we would not be able to be doing the type of work that we're doing, including today's event. Now, just a couple of words about housekeeping. If you would like to ask a question, we would like you to do that in the chat box. So if you go to the chat box after you've been listening to the presentations, please make your questions there, and we'll be going through that and sending them on to me for further discussion. As you know, it is a live streamed event on YouTube, and it will be available after the event. We'd now like to just stop for a moment and ask you if you wouldn't mind doing a group photo, which Thompson will arrange. And Thompson, if there's anything you need to say about that, please just let everybody know what you'd like them to do.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everybody. We're just going to do a quick photo shoot. So those of you who are comfortable to open up your video camera, and with my instructions, look straight to the camera, so that you're actually looking straight to the front instead of looking to side or back. So with the count of a couple of pages here, as you can tell in this Zoom, because we have over 100 people. So I'll do a couple of times, so just bear with me. With the count of 3, 2, 1, smile. 3, 2, 1, smile. 3, 2, 1, smile. 3, 2, 1, smile. And lastly, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll hand it over back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Thompson. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce the first opening address, and that will be from Ms. Rebecca Hall. Rebecca is the Commissioner for Victoria to Southeast Asia. She rejoined the Victorian government this year after 4 years leading international education strategy and programs with Australia's Trade Commission, Austrade, and the Queensland government. Rebecca is known for her collaborative leadership style, her focus on achieving outcomes, and her deep knowledge of international relations. She has held various senior roles with local government, state government, federal government, and with universities and peak bodies. And I'm very pleased to say I've known Rebecca for many years, and it's a great pleasure to be working with her again. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Michael, and to everyone for making time to join this webinar and partnership. If I'm correct, you mentioned you've run 10 of these. I think this is our second or third. Yeah, so wonderful to be partnering again with the dialogue and also with members and partners. I am coming to you today from the Victorian Government Office here in Singapore, and my role is leading across Southeast Asia. So I acknowledge my team members who are also joining the conversation today from Indonesia, from Malaysia, and from Vietnam. In fact, a first plug, just 2 days ago in Malaysia, we opened our first study Melbourne Study Hub in Kuala Lumpur. So it's very much a week focused on education for us. I'm delighted, though, that sitting here, I get to meet with and connect with more than 100 people in the region who have an interest in education in ASEAN, and to hear from experts who have been navigating what I think is an understatement to say challenging times, and in continuing to innovate in teaching and learning. I'd also like to specifically acknowledge the partnership today with the Southeast Asia Ministers of Education Organisation, with CEMEO, and acknowledge the Director, Dr. Ethel Agnes Pascual Venezuela, who's joining us, and her team. I'm just going to spend a very short few minutes just to talk a little bit about why Victoria is so focused on our education partnerships and the opportunity in Southeast Asia. And for many of you on the call, hopefully it is not a new phenomena or any surprise to you because of the depth of history that we have through the movement of students, but also through the partnerships and infrastructure.
Moment.
The use of micro-credentials and virtual technologies to help and support education. And so today you're going to be hearing a little bit more about a partnership which we started, we conceived at the end of last year, and we started implementing earlier this year in order to bring knowledge and information to the most important, I think, frontline, second most important, no competition, frontline workers during COVID, and that is our teachers. And so I want to acknowledge the work of Joe Hasham, who's our Regional Education Director, who's been driving this project, our institutions from Victoria, our partner institutions, and our platform partner and thought leader partner from FutureLearn. We are really keen to continue to share our knowledge and our experience systematically across government, but also directly and targeted towards teachers, those who are learning and those who are committing themselves to the lifelong ambition of and the important work of teaching. I'm really keen to join and hear the conversations today, so I will remain on the line. But I think with that, can I just thank everyone for your time, and really looking forward to sharing more about our focus on education, teacher training, and how we can partner together across ASEAN. So back to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Ethel Agnes Pascua Valenzuela, Director of the CMEO Secretariat. And again, we've been blessed with a really positive cooperative partnership with CMEO. And I really thank Dr. Ethel and her team for the ongoing support they've provided to the dialogue and the advice they've given the AAED in the past, and we hope in the future. So just a couple of words of introduction. Dr. Ethel is currently the Director of CMEO, the Secretariat, and is the first female director since CMEO was established in 1965. She has also been Director for Director for Program and Development of CMEO Secretariat from July 2015 to March 2019, and led the Educational Research and Innovation Office at CMEO Innotech, who you're going to hear from today, from 2006 to 2015. Dr. Valenzuela's expertise is on internationalisation of higher education, transnational education, teacher education, alternative learning, and secondary education. We welcome Dr. Ethel to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael Fay. Honorable Dr. Rebecca Hall, Commissioner of Victorian Government, our dear experts and speakers from CMEO Innotech, and our colleagues there from AAED, we're glad to partner with you in this very important webinar. As you all know, Australia is the #1 destination of our teachers and our learners from the region. And we're very glad that we'll be discussing about the most important topic, and that is teacher quality and teacher professional development. I'm adding teacher competency in ICT as we've been in the pandemic over the last 20 months. I would like to share briefly, and I'll make it very quick, on the overview of what we have in terms of teacher professional development, so as to give Innotech the chance to continue with this discussion. So CIMIO is an intergovernmental organization. It has 11 countries in Southeast Asia, ASEAN, and also Timor-Leste. We have our member countries not coming from Southeast Asia, but beyond. So we have Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Germany, Spain, UK, Kingdom of Morocco, who joined us recently. And those which are not countries, but they are organizations who are working with us, we have also some member countries and working with them, or organizations. And we have been working hard on teacher professional development. In the agenda of CIMIO, we can see revitalizing teacher education and making it a priority of choice. We should put more focus on teacher education and teacher training. That's why, since we have developed the 11-country audit of teacher competency standards since 2010, and in 2015, we have worked on Southeast Asia Teachers Competency Framework. So it's a policy-based research and was already adopted by the Ministers of Education. In that competency framework, you can see essential competencies of a quality and dedicated teacher: knowing and understanding what to teach, helping students to learn, engaging the community, and becoming a better teacher every day. We also got approval from the Ministers of Education in developing the Early Childhood Care Education Teacher Competency Framework for Southeast Asia. So in these two particular competency framework, one general and one for ECCE, we were able to conduct some capacity building in different countries and translating this into Southeast Asian languages. And as you know, now in the pandemic, we are looking into the new competencies of teachers, that is in handling all this flexible remote teaching and learning. And many of our member countries from Brunei to Malaysia have already provided a comprehensive platform for learning. And teachers who before were not equipped with teaching in this digital mode, they were forced, and even they were, they have to upscale all of their platforms and also their skills. So upskilling teachers during the pandemic. It can also be seen even in Myanmar and as far as Timor-Leste, that they have used different platforms for teaching. So this is a current concern for us on teachers' competency during this pandemic. So we convened a high-level forum with our high officials, and in that particular meeting, we are very lucky to have endorsement of our new action agenda for teachers' competencies in framework as well as professional development. So with UNESCO Teacher Task Force, as well as other collaborators, and of course, our experts from Asia Pacific region, we all agreed on the following agenda. One is to invest in teachers' capacity building and professional development, especially in the areas of distance learning and digital technology. We also have to support teachers' workforce, and especially those who are teaching in the most disadvantaged areas. And we would like also to create a policy environment for teacher professionals, including their well-being, teacher motivation, and support. And finally, to provide access to hybrid and distance learning programs and resources. So in a way, from the 11th country audit in 2010, we moved to a more concise teacher competency framework. And now we're working into the ICT competencies in the post-pandemic world. We will be adapting next year, 2022, or 2023, when the ministers will meet again. And of course, in the ministerial meeting, they have called to action all member countries, our associate member countries, and affiliate members to champion education transformation in Southeast Asia. And that is through strategic partnership and collaboration. That's why we're here to work with you and to share the different competencies that we have developed and adopted at the ministerial level and the government level. So thank you very much, and I congratulate all those who have worked hard for this webinar. And I'm very sure that if you wish to download some of these resources, you can just go to our website and get them. So thank you very much, and I I'm really hoping for more collaboration and working closely with the #1 country who gets our teachers and our learners. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ethel, for those kind words and for that overview that's given us the context for drilling down now into a deeper discussion. So one of the CMEO centres, regional centres, is in the Philippines, and they are our partners today, along with FutureLearn through Study Melbourne. So we're going to start off with a perspective from CMEO Innotech in the Philippines, and we're going to be hearing from two of the experts within CMEO Innotech who have been responsible for developing some of the programs that we've heard referenced there. And I'm going to ask, first of all, speaker panelist from CMEO Innotech, Michelle Sarabillo, to speak about the work that she's been doing. And Michelle is specialist learning development educator and evaluation educator at CMEO Innotech. So Michelle, if you'd like to share with us the work that you've been doing in response to COVID-19, and we'll then have time for a couple of questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share with you what we've been doing at Innotech with regards to school leadership programs. So please just allow me to pull up my slides. So here on your screen, you're seeing the title of the program. It's the Southeast Asian School Leadership Program, or CSLP. And it's one of the innovations of Innotech during the first year of the pandemic. And yeah, let me start by saying that CSLP is designed to help school leaders navigate their way through these turbulent or challenging times. And it's anchored on a competency framework that we co-developed with the Ministries of Education in Southeast Asia. It highlights the 5 most essential competencies of a high-performing school head, and those are strategic thinking and innovation, instructional leadership, managerial leadership, stakeholder engagement, and personal excellence. So in the program, these competencies are tackled against the background of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the changes that are happening in learning and education. So as you can see here, the program is an 8-week scholarship program that we offer to school principals and vice principals in the region. It's a practitioner-oriented course that recognizes school leaders as adult learners who bring with them wealth of expertise and experiences into the learning space. So we work closely with the Ministries of Education in the selection and nomination process of our participants. I did mention that the program was designed with the pandemic in mind, and when we don't know exactly what is going to work yet, we just have to let the people close to the ground, in this case, the school heads or the school principals, to innovate, to iterate, and to make sensible adaptations as they gather inspiration and evidence about what works and what doesn't. So CSLP provides them the space and support to do just that through the assignments, the reflective checkpoints, coaching, peer discussions, and other activities that they go through in the program. Yeah, so the program emphasizes reflection as an important leadership skill. So here, reflective checkpoints are interspersed all throughout, where school leaders can have, the chance to surface their stories about overcoming challenges, the practical tools and strategies that they have developed and used during the pandemic, as well as the innovations that are working in their schools. And given that our participants are coming from the different countries in the region with varying contexts and realities, the learning space needs to be inclusive enough to honor the different perspectives and experiences that are present. So while the program offers frameworks, concepts, and tools, and even features resource persons or experts, it does not prescribe one single solution. The voices of the experts, serve as triggers or catalysts for deeper reflection and discussions. We know that solutions are highly contextual and situational, and we think that the school heads are in the best position to identify and decide which ones would work well for them and their schools. What CSLP provides are perspectives, options, alternatives, and possibilities. The program subscribes to strengths-based philosophy. So rather than focusing on problems and issues which we have a lot of, we reframe and crafted the reflective questions positively to inspire and encourage the school heads to seek out opportunities and magnify the things that are already working in their schools. This image represents the learning journey that the school leaders go through in the program. We leverage on our years of experience in implementing school leadership programs via face-to-face and blended approaches. And so we try to replicate the engagement and connection that happens in person online. In CSLP, we aim for learning experiences that build confidence and connection. And so in the program, just like in most online programs, we combine self-paced and synchronous sessions. We spend the first week onboarding them into the program and its norms and easing them into the platform and tools that we use, such as the Inotech learning management system, Zoom, Padlet, and other tools. The school principals come into the space not knowing each other, so we have to build a safe and caring space where everyone could be open enough to tell their stories of successes as well as failures, and even share the most honest ideas and perspectives, because we want, of course, learning and engagement to happen. So we put a lot of effort in incorporating multiple touch points, check-ins, interactions, and collaborative work. We also optimize the use of Facebook and other social media platforms in engaging the school leaders. With these closed group accounts, school leaders can continue the connection and engagement even after the program is completed. We also create individual and group assignments and exercises that are practical and can be applied immediately. And as mentioned earlier, this is a reflective journey. So we invite school leaders to go back to the individual and collective practices and experiences via the reflective checkpoints and country-level discussions. We offer a variety to support different learning styles and preferences, though I must say that this was a challenge because when we developed the program, we were in the middle of the pandemic and we were facing very, very strict travel restrictions. So we had to experiment on a lot of things, such as remote project management, virtual video production, and the heavy use of animated videos. This was really purposive on our part, given the situation last year. And lastly, as you can see in the program, we provide regular feedback. We have peer-to-peer feedback and feedback coming from the country coaches and the program management team. I mentioned country coaches, so they are very much part of the learning journey of our school leaders. They are officials from the ministry or school heads themselves. They serve as facilitators during country-level live talks. They also help contextualize, deepen, and translate concepts and discussions into school-level strategies and actions. And they also help tackle concerns on language, translation, submission of assignments, and sustaining engagement of our school leaders all throughout the program. You know, just as the pandemic drove and accelerated changes across the learning and education system, it compelled Inotech to change the way its CSLP program is delivered from blended approach to fully online. So with the fully online delivery, Inotech is now able to double the number of scholars participants from each CMEO member country. And through the program, we are seeing the benefit and promise of online development programs in preparing school leaders for the challenges ahead, particularly in sharpening leadership competencies, weaving the lessons of this pandemic into the regular school systems and processes, creating a prototype around a strategic priority of the school, and building a community of school leaders. So that ends my presentation. I'll now turn you over back to Michael. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for that overview. And we will come to the second speaker from CMEO in a moment, but I just wanted to ask you a question related to language, because maybe some of us don't know, but we're going to know now that the official language of ASEAN is English.
Right.
And that does provide some challenges in many countries in ASEAN. And I just wonder, given that you do reference that the country coaches in their role on the learning journey do tackle concerns on language, assignments and engagement, with the variety of competencies in English language across the region, how has that been built into the program for the leaders, for the school leaders?
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Let me start by saying that the competency framework for the Southeast Asian school heads was translated into 7 languages. We have Khmer, Burmese, Thai, Thai Kadai, English, Bahasa Indonesia. And so with that, we have a very good reference point. And most of our country coaches also went through the program, which is also a very, it's an advantage. They're very much familiar with the course, and they are, of course, part of the ministry and school heads themselves. So in terms of, supporting our participants in terms of assignments and language, they are actually in a very good position, very good place.
And just a second question before we move on, and that relates to the digital divide between certain countries with bandwidth across the region. You have indicated that there are different ways that you get the message across, but has that been an issue for you, a major issue for you, the digital divide for that group of school leaders, or have they had access to the networks that they need and the hardware they need to participate fully in the program?
Actually, the challenge is so real. And so what we did, I think one of the good strategies of the program is that we leverage on existing social media platforms. So whatever is most accessible to a country, say, for example, Brunei, it's WhatsApp. For Cambodia, it's Telegram. So we use the platform that is most accessible for them. So it's not just, via our learning management system. We also engage them on Facebook. Facebook is where our learners are. And so we really have to, create the space there where they can engage and learn from each other. So there are multiple ways by which we are engaging our school leaders in the program. And it really, as you mentioned, internet connection is really a challenge, and even technology, the skills and capacities, which is why in the program, as I mentioned earlier, we spend 1 week easing them into the platform, building their level of comfort and confidence in using the platforms that we will be using in the program.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to the second part of the InnoTech presentation and discussion. And I'd like to welcome Regina Penarroyo. I hope I've got that pronunciation correct. And Regina is the Officer of the Learning Management and Implementation Unit of CMEO InnoTech. We welcome you to say a few words. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Michael. Thank you, AAED, for this opportunity to share what we have been working on in CMEO InnoTech in the area of teacher development. So let me just share my screen. There, so I hope you're seeing my screen now. So good day. Again, I am Regina from CMEO InnoTech, and today I will share with you one of our programs for teachers' professional development. It's called the Southeast Asia Teachers Competency Framework, or CTCF Course 1. So this is a 10-week online professional development course for in-service teachers. Earlier, my colleague Michelle presented the program for school leaders. This one is for teachers. So this program was designed, developed, and implemented within the context of the pandemic. We have just finished the pilot implementation for 158 teachers from Southeast Asia and beyond. The program was anchored on the Southeast Asia Teachers Competency Framework, which is a set of essential skills that teachers in the region must develop. And these are: know and understand what I teach, help my students learn, engage my community, and become a better teacher every day. And right in the heart of the framework is the joyful learner. And as mentioned by Dr. Valenzuela earlier in her message, this framework was the result of the collaboration among the Teachers Council of Thailand, Simeo Secretariat, Simeo Inotech, and the 11 ministries of education in Southeast Asia. So let me share with you some of the ways by which we support teacher development through this program. First, the program highlights teachers' actual experiences. Usually, when we have online courses, they feature subject matter experts as the sole source of information. In this program, we do have experts discussing different topics. However, we also have lessons that feature teachers simply talking about their actual everyday experiences. Here are some of the learning materials in the program. These are videos and podcasts that feature discussions among teachers from different countries. We made sure to promote teacher stories because they have firsthand experience when it comes to teaching in this new environment. And so by listening to these insightful conversations, the learners of our program see different perspectives. They learn practices from others, and they are able to make connections between their experiences. Another approach of the program is having the right blend and balance of self-paced learning and collaborative learning. And this is important because we cater to adult learners and we want to give them the individual space for self-directed learning, but also the social space and opportunity to learn with and from others. And we do this through a bichronous learning delivery, which simply means that the course has both asynchronous and synchronous activities. So when the learners engage in individual tasks, they can log in to our platform anytime, anywhere, and do the activities such as watching the videos, reading, reflecting, and accomplishing their assignments. And the more social and collaborative aspect of the program, learners can make use of the forum or discussion boards to share thoughts, insights, ask questions. We also hold regular virtual classes that we call live sessions or live talks. These are video conference calls via Zoom, Google Meet, sometimes even Facebook, where they meet as a small class together with a course facilitator. We also leverage social media to connect with our small learning community. So there is a Facebook group for the entire cohort, and then there are messenger chat groups for smaller classes of 15 students each. So the key here is to offer enough space and time for independent study and self-reflection, but also to foster a sense of community into the learning experience, so that the participants can engage with each other, process their learnings together, and even support one another. We have seen some of them become friends throughout this program. So this also helps the teachers expand their network and meet different people. Now, all of the elements in the program work because of the people who provide guidance and mentorship throughout the learning journey. An element that usually lacks in an online program is that genuine human connection and contact time with a co-learner or a mentor. In CTCF, there is a lot of hand-holding and journeying together. We have course facilitators. We call them flexible learning tutors. They are also educators themselves. Some are professors from colleges and universities. Others are from the Philippines Department of Education. They handle a class of 15 students and they act as guide and mentor. They regularly meet with their class to have those live sessions that I mentioned earlier. So during these video calls, the tutors encourage discussions, they synthesize their lessons, they help the students deepen and clarify their learnings, and they also give feedback on the submitted outputs. So what we offer in this program are not just practices and strategies that teachers can immediately apply, but also that sense of community and a safe space to grow and learn. Moreover, Simyo Inotech offers this program as a lens to reflect on our teaching practice, as a map to chart our personal and professional growth, as a compass to get us to our next goal, and as an anchor to keep us grounded to what is truly essential. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Reg, for that, again, really expansive overview of what you're doing, but you did also come down into some really specific areas. And I really like the way that you've put the teacher at the center and the experience, and recognize the experience of the teachers and value that experience. You're listening to them and you're learning from them and from others. Now, with the move that where you moved from having this as face-to-face a couple of years ago to being then blended and now fully online, given the experience you've had and the way that you've refined it for both of your programs, do you see that the future will be a fully online learning environment? That will be the new normal? Or will you aim to return to blended learning and some in-country face-to-face? So could you just give us an idea of, for the two programs, how do you see the future unfolding over the next couple of years? And perhaps a comment from both Reg and Michelle.
Yeah, so let me start and then I'll pass you on to Mitch. Based on the experts that we have talked to when we were creating this program, as well as the teachers who were the learners, the participants of our program, we think that it's going to be, we're considering the very real likelihood that online learning will continue. And just a little bit of context, we are able to say this because when we launched this program, we received over 48,000 applicants, and we only had room for 150 participants. So that was quite a good problem to have. That was a good challenge because it tells us a few things. One, that there is a very high interest in online professional development opportunities like what we offer in Simyo Inotech. And second, that teachers are really looking for all the help that they can get, especially when we launched this program. It was in 2020. We started in 2020, and that was also the height of the COVID restrictions, the lockdown here in Manila and other parts of the Philippines. So teachers were really grappling with this new environment, and there was no playbook, no guidebook telling us what to teach and how to be a good teacher in these trying times. So those are just some of the insights that we've gathered. So for us, yes, there is the very real likelihood that we will continue providing online programs for the teachers of Southeast Asia. Now over to you, Mitch, for the school leaders.
Yes. In terms of the design, as I mentioned earlier, the Southeast Asian School Leadership Program used to follow a blended approach. So it starts with an online engagement, again, easing them into the program, and then they stay at Inotech in the Philippines for 2 weeks for the in-person training component of the program. And then they meet again a month after they return to their school so that we can talk about their action plans or the implementation of their action plans or portions of it. And the way we're seeing it now, just listening to our school leaders, one, human connection is very, very important. They really, would like to have that opportunity to have that in-person, connection with each other. And so even when we're seeing the benefit of online program, I think looking ahead, it's still important that we give our school leaders the opportunity to have that, connection in person and continue that online. And so next year the plan is that we will still continue offering online the CSLP online program, and also transition as learning coming from our experience in developing it fully online. How do we make our blended approach richer, more practical, leveraging on the technology that we have now and all those learnings and insights that we have gained over the past 2 years. So there, Michael.
Thank you, Michelle. And a final question before we move on to hearing about FutureLearn. I note that one of the key principles guiding what you're doing is to ensure that you create a learner-centered environment. And I'd just ask you to share with us, the situation obviously varies from country to country and school to school, but usually class sizes are quite large in Southeast Asia. And I'd wonder how you have addressed the issue of maintaining the learner-centered environment in a reality where you may have a classroom of 30 or 40 students. What are the ways that you've been approaching that issue? Yeah, Michelle?
Yes, so let me answer that in the context of how we're delivering our school leadership program. How do we make it learner-centered? One of our philosophies or principles is meeting our learners wherever they are. And I think our reflective inquiry framework allows us to do that. Because as you can see, we have in the country, the CMEO is composed of 11 CMEO member countries. And you're right, Michael, in saying that in terms of diversity of perspectives and experiences, it really varies. And so with our reflective learning inquiry, really allowing our participants to go back to their realities, to go back to their context, even when we have presented them a framework, a tool, a concept, we would always give them that space. Okay, so given the framework, how do you now, how would you adapt that? Or learn from it? What are the insights? And use that in your school context. That's the way we're actually delivering our programs in terms of, well, at least for the Southeast Asian School Leadership Program.
Thank you. Anything, Reg, that you'd like to add to that? Just in terms of the teachers as we say, at the coalface?
Yeah. Let me also answer that question from the perspective and context of the program, because the teacher to student ratio here in the Philippines is a systemic issue. But what I can talk about is how the program maintains its learner-centeredness. So one of the things that CTCF Course 1 advocates is starting from a place of strength. In fact, one of the first few lessons in the program is about having a strengths-based mindset. And so I think a big chunk of enhancing teacher quality is reframing the way we think about strengths, because usually we tend to look at ourselves to find, deficits, weaknesses, gaps. Even the system of learning design starts with needs analysis. You look at what is missing, you look at what you don't have. But this program, being learner-centered, also honors the strength that our learners already have, the talents that are already there, and having a better understanding of those strengths. That's why in this program, we start with what we call the self-rating competency checklist, where the teachers are encouraged to reflect on their own skill levels and rate them according to 4 descriptions. And I really like how these descriptions are phrased. So we have 1, I cannot do this yet. I can do this, but I need to learn more. I can do this very well. I can do this with confidence, and I can teach others. So that's a very learner-centered way of highlighting your skills and looking at your skills gaps. So even the skills gaps, we describe them as things that you cannot do yet, meaning you'll be able to do them eventually when you learn more. And the things that you're already good at are described as things that you can do with confidence and pass on to others. So it's a very nuanced framework on enhancing teacher quality, because it tells you what you need to develop further, but also celebrates the things that you're already good at, and even reminds you to share your talents with others.
Thank you, Reg. Now I'm delighted to welcome from Melbourne, Australia, representing FutureLearn, who are partnering with Study Melbourne, Mr. Daniel Hope. And Daniel is the Course Development Manager for the Asia Pacific at FutureLearn Limited. He's a teacher training professional specialising in digital learning and short-form professional development. And most recently, Daniel's focus has been on delivering online programs to global learners in partnership with world-leading education faculties. And by that, he means Victorian education and training providers. Some are universities, some are others, but certainly global best practice faculties from all over Victoria. So Daniel, welcome, and thank you for making the time to join us today as well.
Indeed. Thank you, Michael, and thanks to the other panelists so far. It's been really interesting to hear what you've had to say. And I think you'll see as I go through what I'm going to talk about with FutureLearn that there's a lot of parallels between what Simio Innotech are providing for teachers and what we're aiming to do with our partnership with Study Melbourne and the Victorian Government Trade and Investment Commission. So FutureLearn, if you don't know who we are the world's leading social learning platform. So futurelearn.com delivers short courses, free, accessible, short-form learning, all the way through to full degree programs to learners across the world, fully online in our social learning platform. Earlier this year, or towards the end of last year, we were engaged by the Victorian Government Trade and Investment Commission and Study Melbourne to think about providing a showcase or a series of support modules and pieces of learning for teachers across Southeast Asia. And in partnership with the Victorian Government, we went and talked to a range of different Victorian institutions and put together this course that you can see a little snippet of here, which is called Best Practice for Education Professional Development Showcase, which is a little bit of a mouthful, but essentially it's a series of modules from different providers that was aimed to be really short form upskilling for teachers in cutting edge areas of education where institutions and organizations in the state of Victoria have particular expertise. So democratizing that knowledge, putting it out there completely for free for learners to be able to engage and upskill their teaching practice. So we put together a course in collaboration with all of these organizations. So one single course across a series of 4 weeks, but with learners able to jump in and jump out as they please and take as much time as they need to, because we understand that teachers are often time poor and are working on a lot of other things. So they could choose to do a module per week or pick only the modules that interest them specifically. And you can see there on this slide the range of different institutions that we work with. I know a few are on this call today, so thank you for joining. I think I saw Holmes Glen and Deakin University on the call. And we were aiming for a range of different perspectives, not just university providers, but also private providers and government providers like Women's Health Victoria, providing something that was a little bit different in terms of applying a gender equity lens to classrooms. The Australian Council for Educational Research, obviously applying some of their research knowledge, and then the traditional universities, as well as FutureLearn, getting involved a little bit with our expertise in teaching online. So you can see on the right-hand side of this slide, an example of a certificate. So the aim is that students are able to work through these modules, get specific achievements by completing the individual modules, and then an overarching certificate here that you can see that lovely sign off from Rebecca Hall, who joined us previously to introduce this session. So the aim is that we're providing something that's a credential that learners can take away, that's not formal or accredited, but is some proof of learning, that they've worked through these different modules and been able to pick up all of these different small pieces of content that they can apply in their teaching practice. And we hope that the course we've created is really practical and applicable for teachers right away. So I'm actually going to hop into it really quickly to show you what it looks like. And I believe my colleague on the call will share with you the link to this if you want to have a look at it yourself after the call. So yeah, it's called Best Practice for Education, and it brings together all of those different institutions, which Study Melbourne helped us greatly with, in order to provide a singular course to support learners. And this is the course description page. So you can see to date over 2,000 learners have gone through the course and have completed very high completion rates as far as engagement on the steps of the course, individual modules, and completion of the whole thing. And that this course is completely free for learners. So we've brought together cutting edge research that otherwise people wouldn't have access to be able to improve their own teaching practice in their own schools. So FutureLearn is free to sign up for. You can join with a Google account, a Facebook account, or directly with FutureLearn. So it should be pretty easy for anyone who considered to join to access it. And we worked with the Victorian government. They reached out to quite a number of schools across Southeast Asia to make this opportunity clear to them and to share that information. And then we also have a learner base on FutureLearn of around 18 million learners, and around 24% of those work directly in teaching and education. So our inbuilt direct learner base of people who are interested in this kind of content, as well as the support of the Victorian government's networks through Rebecca and Joe and the rest of the team there, to really get the message out about what we were offering here, because I think it's something that's exciting and a little bit different. And this is the FutureLearn platform. So you can see I have 4 weeks of learning, and I track my progress through each week along the top here. We really try and celebrate progress throughout the course. So at each of these little end of activities, we have a little quiz that learners can formatively check their understanding, and then they can find out more about the institution that's provided that content. So this module here on flipped learning from Melbourne Polytechnic, each of the modules last around 90 minutes, and they're designed to be standalone, but also fit within the whole voice and tone of the course itself, and the voice and tone of Victoria as the state of education in Australia. So to give you an idea of the learner experience that these teachers participated in, they were introduced to the course, why it came about, what the learning outcomes will be over the coming 4 weeks. And then one of the things we asked them first up front is, what type of a role do you have in education? And these kinds of early prompts, I think, have allowed us to make teachers, library practitioners, tertiary educators feel more comfortable that they're with peers. And the social learning approach means that on every step of a FutureLearn course, there's an ongoing comments feed that allows learners to engage with each other, ask each other questions, and start a conversation. So you can see here straight away that even in the very early stages, people introducing their background, where they're coming from. We've got Ron here from Lao, and then other people introducing themselves as well, so they can start to build that community of practice and see those other learners as they go through. Learners can follow each other and add each other's profiles so they can track and engage with learners as they go through the course. The other thing that we did to try and engage learners through a purely digital asynchronous, non-facilitated approach to learning was to implement a learning journal, which is not something that's new by any means, but we found was a really useful tool in this online environment. Lots of learners saying that they regularly use learning journals already, and it's something they're familiar with and encourage their students to do as well. People suggesting different methods for keeping a journal, which then learners could engage with throughout the course as they went through. There we go. I wanted to share a story just quickly of a learner on FutureLearn who is a teacher who from Malaysia who recently gave birth to twins and has taken time off of her career to focus on raising her children, and used the FutureLearn course to keep in contact with best practice for teaching of what's happening right now, so that it felt like she still had her career front of mind and was able to step back into the classroom with confidence when that time comes. And I just think it's a really powerful story about how online education and making education accessible to everyone can have a really powerful impact on the lives of individuals and their passion for what they do day to day. A couple of other testimonials that I won't read in full, but just to say, I think suffice to say that the course has been incredibly well received. It was something we were a little bit unsure of, because a FutureLearn course would generally be delivered, say, by Deakin University across 3 weeks with the same educators and the same focus, and the learning outcomes all linked to each other. Whereas you can see in our list of education topics and modules here, there are quite a lot of big differences between those topics. And so we really encouraged learners to only take what they needed to come back, or to take a break if something was a bit too much for them at the time, or they didn't fully understand the concept, and to engage with others in the comments to get support. Moving from something like presentation skills in English into teaching online, to allow learners to really get a whole breadth of knowledge. And just as a quick, I'll spend a little bit of time a little bit later in the hour talking about some insights that we've gained from this and from FutureLearn as a platform in general. But to give you an idea of the most popular modules so far, these are the 5 that have been most engaged with in order and most completed. So learners from Southeast Asia, and this is specifically from learners in those 11 countries, particularly interested in flipped learning and online learning. And that's no surprise given the ongoing pandemic conditions, a lot of schools still not teaching in person. Teaching in nature is obviously something that anyone can apply in their teaching practice, we'd hope. And so something that teachers are particularly interested in. Gender equity and English, no surprise there, as also a very popular topic.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Just on the question of language, given that all of your courses are delivered in English only,
yep,
whereas we heard from Innotech that they have had the time and the space to translate into a number of languages. So I guess you've been appealing to a cohort that feel confident in doing the study in English language, and also confident to study alone, because there's not that same level of synchronous learning where you kind of create the social network for people. So it requires, I guess, quite a high level of discipline and the ability to study alone. Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of elements that feed into why the course has done so well despite some of those perhaps challenges that you've mentioned. And one is that the modules are really bite-sized and snappy, so you get to the knowledge really quickly. And that means that you don't need a huge amount of motivation to complete a long program. You can do a 90-minute session, have a coffee, it can be your lunch break, and then come back and do another one next week. The language component is interesting because For instance, on this course, we've had 17% of learners from Thailand. The standard for Future Learn is only 1% of learners that enroll on our courses are generally from Thailand. And what we've found is that some of those learners who are more comfortable in Thai are commenting in Thai, and that's not against our rules, that's totally fine. And what they're doing is using Google Translate to translate the page, and that works quite well. There are full transcripts and support for all of the videos. And then engaging in their own language if they're more comfortable in that. But it's also a good opportunity with other learners from Southeast Asia to practice those English skills. I think you can see that evident in the comments as well, people trying to engage maybe with a lower level of English or less sophisticated English, but trying nonetheless to engage in that conversation and get that social element going. So yeah, I mentioned before 17% of learners from Thailand. The top 10 countries, I think all but Australia in the top 10 countries of enrollments were Southeast Asian. So a very high proportion of learners from Laos and Myanmar in particular compared to populations and our general audience. And then Indonesia, the Philippines being rounding out the top 5 there.
Thank you, Daniel. Now we're starting to get questions coming through on the chat box, and I'd encourage you to really take that opportunity now. And I'm going to give a couple of questions, and obviously more are going to come through. But this is from Ivan. Ivan says, students may or may not thrive in online learning. One needs self-discipline. We just talked about that. Determination to excel. On the flip side, students suffer online fatigue or having difficulty concentrating. What are the best practices of teaching maths online? Hasn't been a topic of discussion yet, but what are the best practices of teaching maths online? How to overcome all the challenges faced by parents, teachers, and students? Big question. But would anybody like to come in on that, on the question about, you know, the challenges of online and the concentration issue, the fatigue issue, and the maths issue? Anybody like to talk about that?
I probably can't speak to all of those, but there are a couple of elements that we try and build into Future Learn courses, and this course in particular, to combat that. One of them is celebrating progress. So at short increments of learning, really making it clear that you've made progress through the course and there's an end point that's very clear, making it scaffolded in a way that learners can see exactly where they're going and where they've come from. And I think Reg mentioned before that sort of zone of proximal development element of it's not something you can't do, it's something that you can't do yet, or that's something that you don't have the full picture of yet. You've got the jigsaw puzzles, and we need to help you put them together. So it's about starting off in a way that learners already understand what you begin with, and then building on that sort of basic understanding for us. And then the other thing is to teach, not tell. So many online platforms and online courses will just show you something in a video and you're expected to sit there and watch a 10-minute video and that's going to sink in and be something that's applicable. Instead, we try, where possible, to add engagement tools so that you're actually practicing something and then reporting back, comparing notes with other learners so that it is more synchronous, despite not always being online at the same time.
Okay, thank you. From the Innotech perspective, given that you do have those tutors that work alongside the students, could you make a comment about that as well, just in terms of the online learning, the difficulties, the fatigue? Maybe you don't suffer that so much with Innotech because you're approaching it through the community of learning and the coaches, etc. So Michelle or Reg.
Yeah, so Mitch said, okay, I'll go first. In terms of trying to address the challenges of the learners in our program, we also advocate a lot of empathy. And, you know, empathy is not just a soft skill, but it can be a tool to teaching and learning. So in one of the lessons in CTCF Course 1, we focus on building and practicing empathy. And we use there's some sort of a framework tool template for it, in which you have this learner at the center, and then you write down your observations about what the learner sees in his or her everyday experiences, what they hear at home, at school, what they hear from their friends, from TV, from the radio, what they feel. So you try to immerse yourself in what the learner might be feeling and might be thinking. And then after you have all of those four elements, you also try to think of what are their pain points, what are the things that challenges them, and what are their pleasure points, meaning things that motivate them. So if you have that picture, you have that empathy map, we call it an empathy map, and it's a better way of understanding where your students are coming from and understanding their challenges as well. And it also gives you some sort of a peek into what are the possible solutions by building on the things that motivate these learners. So it's not very specific to a particular subject matter or a particular course, but it's more of like a general overview or a general way of trying to know our learners, our students more.
Thank you, Reg. Michelle, would you like to say something?
Yes. I'd like to build on what was already shared by Daniel and Reg. And for CSLP, we also put a lot of effort in making our assignments, really practical, something that they can like use immediately, apply immediately. And I think that counters, boredom, or, they see really the value of the program. And I think, the opportunity as well to work with their teachers, because in CSLP, these are vice principals and principals. And so we also encourage them to work closely with their teachers, have that, social learning, them also coaching. So again, making the activities and the assignments really meaningful for them, something that will offer, value proposition.
Thanks, Michelle. We have a question from A. Aksoy, who's, I think the focus of this is, do you have any way of observing the teachers who have been through, let's say, Michelle, your program, to see if they're actually able to action what they've learned through either your program, the first one, or Regina's second program?
Yes, I'm not sure if I understood the question right, but let me answer that by saying that, we just offered CSLP in January of this year. So that was considered our pilot run. And
Right.
we learned a lot from that run of our program. And what we did, the program is actually ongoing. What we did was gather, and we did a number of reviews from the team, the design team, and then we also consulted, of course, our country coaches, the participants, because it's really heavy on feedback. It's integrated right from the start up to the end of the program. We also, consolidated the feedback that we got from our participants, who are school heads, and then redesigned the program, the ongoing program now based on the feedback that we have gotten. And so that's how it is. That's how we value the insights, the feedback that we're getting from our participants. And one of which, really talking about action plans, because in the previous run they didn't get the chance to really dive into their prototypes. So for this run, we spent also a week just guiding our school heads into helping them into their action plans, so that when they go back to their schools, they are able to really apply, perhaps not the entire plan, but portions of it. And then we will leverage, the Facebook account that we already have, so that they can share the successes, or perhaps, the challenges that they are experiencing, so that the learning and engagement continues, even the program is already completed.
I think the person may be also getting to the question about, are the teachers or the heads implementing what they've learnt from your course in their everyday working environment in the school? How do you know that? Is there any way, or you just assume?
Well, it's an 8-week program. So we, just like how, CTCF is designed, we start with our learners are. We gather their stories and reflection. And for each of the module, we always ask them to reflect. And this is where, our school heads are very, very generous in terms of sharing with us how they were able to apply the concepts, how they were able to apply the tools that we offered in the program. And, Michael, these are adults. And so whatever they take away from whatever it is that they feel, valuable for them, that's what they apply. And the school heads are just so generous. They put up photos, and even like a lot of them actually photos on our learning management system and even on our Facebook account as to how they are progressing in terms of applying what they are learning in the course. I think that's the value of having a long running program. You get to see some of the applications already happening in the schools.
Thank you. We've got another question, and we need to leave a little bit more time for Daniel in a moment, but this is a question, and I think it's a really important one, about learners' mental health and well-being with an online interface. And people have heard anecdotally in some cases instances of how the online teaching has affected students' well-being. Now, obviously, if you're championing an online platform, you believe that the online environment can be made as a socially interactive, safe learning environment. But are you getting feedback that the students are finding this isolating? It's an isolating environment in which to learn, but it seems that we're stuck with it for some time. Are there any comments on that, on the mental well-being of students in an online learning environment? Perhaps Daniel, you might like to say something from
Sure, yeah.
Future Learn.
So we do have, it's a little bit tough for us because our platform is not specifically designed for high school or primary school students. It's more for the teachers themselves. But one thing that we can do is aim to give teachers the upskilling they need to deal with those behavioral problems that stem from this, the well-being issues that stem from students being unable to adjust. In some cases, may have never been to a classroom before now, and they're moving into, second year of schooling. So we do offer a number of courses, specifically free open courses, specifically around teaching well-being in classrooms and supporting trauma for students. And then as far as learners on the courses themselves, anecdotally, it does seem to be that while people were locked down, doing an online course in a social environment was actually a little bit of connection with people that they weren't familiar with, and they could share some of that COVID experience. But we do encounter students with well-being concerns reasonably commonly, where they'll post something that is slightly troubling, and we have a flagging system in place, but also an active moderation system. So we have professionals in trauma awareness and mental health support who do moderate comments and just check for any of those red flags so that we can actively reach out to them and say, hey, how are you going? We noticed this comment. Can we support you in any way?
Anything that Michelle or Reg would like to say about that, the student sort of mental wellbeing issue, and then we'll move on to the final part of your presentation, Daniel?
Yeah, so let me just add on to what Daniel has already said. Our philosophy in CTCF Course 1 is that you cannot give what you don't have. So for teachers to be able to address the mental health and well-being challenges of their students, they have to first make sure that they are mentally healthy and well. So in the program, we have specific lessons on enhancing wellness, curbing burnout, giving teachers some practical advice, such as having a routine, acknowledging your emotions, identifying these emotions, communicating your feelings with others. So those are things that we encourage the teachers to do so that in turn, they can also address the mental health and well-being challenges of their students.
Thank you. Okay, Daniel, you've got a couple of other things that you're going to focus on just towards the end. We're running down the clock here. So if you've got 5 minutes to
definitely.
finish that, that would be great.
I'd say probably won't even need 5. So if there are
Okay.
any questions about this towards the end, we'd be happy to. But we just wanted to split this in two. So the first element that I sort of talked to was how this course came about and the impact of this specific course. But now I want to talk about sort of what's next, how we can work with other institutions in Southeast Asia, and also insights that come from running a platform like FutureLearn that are maybe applicable for everyone, or food for thought for a lot of teachers and school leadership. And so I picked out a couple of key learnings from the FutureLearn platform, the first of which being that we're seeing a growing trend of people who register and self-identify as education professionals or teachers are growingly enrolling in coding and programming courses. Unclear yet whether that's to teach the coding and programming to their students or to keep up to date themselves. So in particular, of particular interest there is the demand from the Philippines around coding and programming courses. And the course that's most popular is the very small image there of computer programming for everyone from the Institute of Coding. And then similarly, we see leadership being a really high topic of interest for teachers outside of just teaching-based courses. So what is leadership there from Deakin University? So it does seem to us on FutureLearn that there is a range of different upskilling that teachers are looking to do, and it's more diverse than just inclusivity in the classroom or teaching English or the sort of standard things that you would think of. And I guess that's the beauty of having access to this data from across a range of different subject areas. We also see that engagement in the region does stay within the region a lot of the time. So big brand universities across Southeast Asia and Australia are of most interest to education professionals and learners in the region. So the most popular university courses for Southeast Asian teachers to enroll upon come from Monash University, and that includes their incredibly popular Mindfulness for Wellbeing course, which I think is something that links to what we were talking about before with mental health and the impact of the pandemic on teaching professionals. Deakin University, who we work very closely with, and University Malaya as well, who deliver courses both in English and in Bahasa Melayu. So I think it's very interesting that even though we are a global platform with global universities and huge brands from the UK and the US, that a lot of the bigger brand Australian and particularly Victorian universities are overrepresented in interest in the region. So that's something we can tap into. And something that we've done on the right-hand side of this screen, you can see a list of courses that come from Victorian institutions specifically. And this is part of that Victorian government partnership. And I'll try and share this in the comments as well, but we have many tens of dozens of courses from Victorian institutions already live and many more in the pipeline, including full degrees. And one thing that we do is sort of, you were talking about tracking the impact, I think, of some of these programs. We can't do that specifically as far as application with short courses, but what we can do is we can track lifelong learning on FutureLearn, and we can see what teachers move through in terms of the types of learning and also the volume of learning. So teaching professionals who might have a bachelor's degree who then go on to do a postgraduate study somewhere like Deakin through our platform, first engaging on something that's a really short form credential is really interesting to look at as well. The most popular topics in teaching will probably not surprise anyone, but for Southeast Asian teachers, English language is the most popular topic for learners to enroll upon. Inclusion and special needs, and then teaching online, which has grown in popularity enormously since the pandemic, obviously. So what's next for the partnership with FutureLearn and Study Melbourne and our Australian institutions as well to deliver support to Southeast Asian teachers? So we're exploring a lot of possibilities, but that involves supporting international students that are planning to come to Australia. So what is the experience of studying in Melbourne and how can we support that transition? Or what is the experience of studying online with an Australian institution and how can we support that and make sure learners are well prepared and set up for success? We mentioned local languages before, so that's something that we're constantly exploring and do have courses in local languages as well, but what can we do specifically for certain markets that might have particular needs? And then partnerships. So this partnership there is an example from Biji Biji Initiative and the University of Melbourne. There are a range of different partnerships that we have and cross collaborations on the platform, but we'd always love more. And so that's part of what our Study Melbourne and Austrade relationships helps to sort of bring to the market.
Great. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thanks.
So as we sort of wind down to the end of this, for me, this has been a really fascinating hour and a half with thought leaders from education, both from Southeast Asia and Australia. It's a region that Australia, I think, feels increasingly comfortable in working with. You just have to look at some of the examples of the numbers of Australian institutions that are active in Southeast Asia, the numbers of students from Southeast Asia studying in Australia, and the real leadership work that's being done by the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organisation and its regional centre, InnoTech. We've learnt more, I think, than anybody from this experience today. So thank you so much to CMEO. Thank you to CMEO InnoTech for really professional and thoughtful presentations. We look forward to working further with both CMEO and CMEO InnoTech. I'd like to thank the Victorian Government through Study Melbourne, Rebecca Hall, Joanne Hashim. With FutureLearn, Daniel, thank you for your presentation. For our panelists from InnoTech, Michelle Sarabillo and Regina Pen Arroyo, thank you so much. We look forward to joining with you for further events. As I mentioned at the beginning, next year, both Brunei and Cambodia are two country focuses that we will follow through, particularly now with the chair of ASEAN moving to Cambodia in 2022. Thank you to Victorian Government and Study Melbourne for sponsoring this event. And thank you to we've still got 123 people. I mean, this is really exceptional, who have obviously found something from this event. So thank you so much from all the countries within Southeast Asia who have joined and people from all over Australia. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.